inspection through the electronic mode by members at the EGM. Thomas Cook India Limited is a company engaged in the business of travel and financial services promoted by Fairfax Financial Holdings Limited through its wholly owned subsidiaries and affiliates. The travel and tourism industry has been severely impacted due to the global pandemic. TCIL's business, dependent solely in the travel and tourism sector, which is significantly and probably the worst hit and affected due to the COVID pandemic. The pandemic affected various parts of the world since December 2019 and in India since March 2020. Operations in India effectively came to a standstill from March 15, 2020, when the government of India closed doors of the country and suspended all domestic and international flights, which were further accentuated by the nationwide lockdown declared on March 24, 2020. Similarly, our global operations ceased once the World Health Organization declared the pandemic on March 11, 2020. This led to a complete suspension of all our business lines, and we have not been able to resume our business activities in any significant manner till date. Our revenues have declined almost to a negligible level. Consequently, this was adversely impacted and will continue to impact our financial performance and resources. It has been more than a year, and during this period, we've been forced to utilize our cash reserves and draw on our various credit lines to manage the funds requirement. The situation seems to be improving with the launch of various vaccines. However, we anticipate challenging times to continue for our operations globally, with leisure travel still not being the priority for people, coupled with border controls and restrictions. Thus, there is a need to infuse fresh funds in the company for its survival and revival. In order to survive through these turbulent times, revive business operations, and contain the impact of future losses, the company is contemplating raising further funds from its promoter, Fairfax Financial Holdings, by issuing optionally convertible cumulative redeemable preference shares known as OCC-RPS, or referred to as OCC-RPS. I will use this opportunity to address approximately 5 points which will explain what we are trying to do. The rationale of the proposed funding. Due to the global pandemic, our operations in India and overseas effectively came to a standstill from March 2020. The lockdowns across the globe led to a complete suspension of all our business lines, and we have not been able to resume our business activities in any significant manner till date. Our revenues have declined almost to a negligible level, and the impact of the pandemic on our financial performance and resources is depicted in the company's financial results. With the launch of various vaccines, the situation is expected to improve and things are expected to progress slowly towards normalcy. Also, while people have resumed traveling for work, leisure travel is still not a priority. International flight operations have not yet started, but in fact are restricted only to a couple of countries. International travel will also depend on various border controls and restrictions imposed by the respective countries. We anticipate that these challenging times will continue further. Given the current scenario and the financial position of the company, we need to infuse fresh funds in the company for its survival and revival. What is the objective of the proposed fundings, and how will these funds be utilized? The primary objective is to meet working capital, general corporate requirements of the company. The funds are also proposed to be utilized for investment in, lending to overseas joint venture entities, wholly owned subsidiary companies, which will utilize the funds for their working capital and general corporate purposes. How did the company arrive at the 7% annual dividend rate and 3.69% retention premium? What is the basis for this and why is it not considered excessive? The company had to abide by the limits set by the Reserve Bank of India under the ECB guidelines. The all-in cost ceiling, as per the guidelines, RBI ECB regulations, is prescribed through a spread over the benchmark rate. The benchmark rate in the case of Indian instruments refers to the prevailing yield of the Government of India's securities of corresponding maturity. In the current case, the benchmark will be the 7-year government security yield 6.19% as on February 16, 2021, and the mandated spread of 450 basis points, leading to an all-in cost ceiling of 10.69%. Since the transaction is with the immediate parent, the transaction fell under the ambit of a related party transaction from the Companies Act and income tax point of view. Hence, an arm's length pricing was adopted to comply with applicable regulations and audit requirements. The OCCRPS are convertible into equity shares of the company at any time within 18 months at the option of the company. What will the guiding principles procedure of the company will follow in the future date while deciding between conversion or repayment of the instrument? The company will continue to evaluate the on-ground progress on a regular basis and accordingly judge the situation and take its recommendation to the board as and when it feels apt to convert the instrument. The independent directors of the board will then, based on the management's recommendation, analyze, debate, and provide its final decision for conversion. Neither the promoter nor the nominee directors will participate in this process. How does the management intend to redeem the OCC RPS in part or in full if business prospects become better, say after 1 year or so, in order to limit excessive dilution of minority shareholders' economic interest? The OCC RPS has been issued with a tenure of 7 years with a flexibility to repay it in full or part as the company deems fit. The reason for choosing an optionally convertible instrument is to ensure that any conversion is done only when absolutely necessary to minimize dilution of minority shareholders' economic interest. It is pertinent to mention that the option of conversion lies with the issuer and not with the holder, and such option can be exercised only up to the first 18 months. Post that, the instrument becomes essentially redeemable. Further, the company intends to redeem as much of the OCC RPS as possible once our business gets back to normal. It is expected that as the vaccination process progresses, the impact of the pandemic will gradually recede. Over a period of 18 months, the company will be able to decide how much of the proceeds it would like to redeem. The OCC RPS is proposed to be subscribed by our promoter, Fairbridge Capital Mauritius Limited. In terms of the issue, the terms of the issue have been sent out in a notice sent to all of you. The board believes that the proposed preferential issue is in the best interest of the company and its members. I would like to inform members that in compliance with the provisions of the Companies Act 2013 and the rules made thereafter and pursuant to the provisions of Regulation 44 of the Securities Exchange Board, listing obligations and disclosure requirements, regulations of 2015, the company has provided its members a facility to cast their votes on all resolutions set forth in the notice of the EGM using the electronic voting system referred to as remote e-voting provided by the Central Depository Services India Limited, also known as CDSL. The remote e-voting facility ended on Thursday, March 25th, 2021 at 5 p.m. However, many of the members present at the meeting may not have cast their vote and through the remote e-voting. In this respect, the e-voting facility of CDSL is now live and all eligible members are requested to cast their votes. Members who have already cast their vote through the remote e-voting earlier will not be allowed to vote through ballot being conducted electronically at this meeting. Members may please take note that as a part of the green initiative process, the company extends the facility of voting through e-voting facility provided by CDSL for all its members holding shares on the cutoff date March 19, 2021, and who have not already cast their vote by remote e-voting. I would further like to inform you that Mr. P.N. Parekh of Parekh Associates, practicing company secretaries, will be acting as a scrutinizer for the remote e-voting process and e-voting process. He is independent of the company and thus acting as scrutinizer for the votes cast at the EGM. Since this meeting is being conducted virtually, members who wish to speak or ask questions during the EGM are requested to write to the company at least 7 days in advance of the EGM mentioning their details. I have a list of members who have registered with the company, their names as speaker, and I shall call out their names one after another. Since this is a virtual meeting, on my announcement of the name of the shareholder, he or she will be able to speak on the web platform, and upon completion of their views and questions, opportunity to speak will be given to the next speaker shareholder. I request shareholders to ask questions directly pertaining to the relevant item of business for consideration and not to repeat questions which I have already spoken about and those which have already been asked by the shareholders. Please also mention your name and folio number and reference to the page number of the notice of the EGM while asking questions. After the questions are raised, I will answer them or have them answered. Mr. Dinesh G. Bhatia.
CDSL. Hello.
Bhatia.
Yeah, Mr. Dinesh Bhatia is not present. You can move to the next speaker shareholder.
Mr. Bimal Kumar Agarwal.
Mr. Vimal Kumar Agarwal is also not present. You can move to the next speaker shareholder.
Mr. Santosh Kumar Saraf.
हाँ जी नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
एक मिनट सर, वीडियो शेयर कर रहा हूँ। हाँ जी नमस्कार। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, उपस्थित निधि सदस्यगण और मेरे शेयरहोल्डर भाइयों बहनों जो आज वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस में हम प्रेजेंट है, आप सभी को नमस्कार। मैं संतोष कुमार साहब तड़का से बोल रहा हूँ सर। आशा करता हूँ आप जितने हमारे डायरेक्टर हैं और जितने भी हमारे कर्मचारी और जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर है वह और उनकी फैमिली स्वस्थ होगी। आप सभी डायरेक्टर को और आपकी फैमिली को और हमारे जितने भी कर्मचारी हैं और जितने भी स्टेक होल्डर है, चाहे वह अपने क्लाइंट हो जो भी हो, सब के तो 2021 की शुभकामना देता हूँ और प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि 2021 आप सभी के लिए हेल्दी वेल्दी और प्रॉस्पेरस होगा सर। और सर हम 2020 के बाद में 2021 के बाद में पॉजिटिव सोच के साथ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। प्रमोटर अपना कुछ फंड भी इसके अंदर इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रहे हैं, बिजनेस शुरू करता है तो समझते हैं कि जब ट्रेवल एजेंसी या ट्रेवल एजेंसी के बिजनेस के कारण अपने फंड की भी सरकार में 2020 में हमने काफी तकलीफ में गए। तो ये जो फंड अपने जो नया आएगा ये हमको लगता है कंपनी में काफी लाभ होगा इसके लिए, और इसके लिए मैं जो डायरेक्टर लोगों की पॉजिटिव सोच को भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूँ। और 2000 की जो ये पॉजिटिव जो भी आगे हमको बहुत काम आएगी सर। सर मेरा ये कि पूछना ये कब तक इम्प्लीमेंट हो जाएगा, जो अपने फंड कब तक अपने को आ जाएगा, और अपने जो डिविडेंड के लिए कब तक अपने डिविडेंड लिस्ट आ जाएंगे सर, ये बताने कष्ट करिएगा सर। और मैं आपसे एक रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ, वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस मीटिंग काफी अच्छी है सर, लेकिन आज मैं कल्पना से आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ, आपको नमस्कार भी कर सकता हूँ, अदरवाइज मेरे लिए पॉसिबल नहीं होता कि आगे बढ़ा करना। तो मैं चाहूंगा अभी 31 दिसंबर 2021 तक तो गवर्नमेंट ने अलाउ किया है, आशा करता हूँ फ्यूचर में इसका कंसेप्ट आप अपना लीजिए तो कंटिन्यू रखिए। कल ना आप फिजिकल मीटिंग करनी पड़ती है मजबूरी में, मैं चाहूंगा 10-15 मिनट के लिए आप वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस मीटिंग में रखिए, वर्चुअल मीटिंग रही, जिससे कि जो आपके ऑफलाइन इंडिया में शेयर होल्डर है वो चाहे तो अपने मन की बात कह सकते हैं। ये कंसर्न अपने सक्सेस वगैरह पहले डर लगता था कैसे क्या होगा नहीं होगा, अब अपने सक्सेस, और मैं भी कम से कम सुबह से 2 मीटिंग करता हूँ, तीसरी मीटिंग आपकी अटेंड कर रहा हूँ, ये बहुत अच्छा लगता है घर में बैठे बात करने से आपके। नमस्कार सर, मैं ज्यादा समय नहीं लूंगा, कंपनी से के भविष्य की कामना करता हूँ, आप सब डायरेक्टर के अच्छे भविष्य की कामना करता हूँ, और आशा करता हूँ जब से जब डिविडेंड आप हमें देंगे। और धन्यवाद सर समय देने के लिए। जय हिंद, जय भारत, जय श्री राम के साथ मैं आपको समाप्त करता हूँ, नमस्कार करते हुए।
बहुत धन्यवाद मिस्टर सराफ, थैंक यू वेरी मच। मिस्टर शरद कुमार जीवराज शाह।
Mr. Sharad Kumar is not present. You can move to the next speaker, shareholder.
Mr. J. Abhishek.
Mr. J. Abhishek is also not present. You can move to the next speaker, shareholder.
Mr. Sarbananda Gatani.
Mr. Sarvananda Gatani is also not present. Thank you.
As mentioned, I earlier mentioned that there are 5 points which would explain the various aspects of the issue that we are seeking approval for today, and therefore I do not believe that that we need to give any further responses because Mr. Kasaraf did not raise any questions. We will now get to the business of the meeting. First item of business as follows: to increase the authorized share capital and consequential amendment to the capital clause in the memorandum of association of the company. This is an ordinary resolution. Number 2, to approve a preferential issue of optionally convertible cumulative redeemable preference shares to Fairbridge Capital Mauritius on a private placement basis. Since I am deemed to be concerned, interested in this matter, I would request Mrs. Kishori Udeshi to please take the chair.
CDSL, please unmute Mrs. Kishori Udeshi.
Yes, done.
Thank you, Chairman. I now proceed to the next item of the notice, which is the primary reason for convening this EGM. That is relating to preferential issue of optionally convertible redeemable preference shares to Fairbridge Capital Mauritius on a private placement basis. This is a special resolution. With your permission, I will now hand over the chair back to Mr. Madhavan Menon, Chairman of the company.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Udeshi. I go to the next point: reappointment of Mr. Nilesh Vikamsi as non-executive independent director for a term of 5 years with effect December 23rd, 2020 to December 22nd, 2025. The next item, number 3 of the notice, pertains to the reappointment of Mr. Nilesh Vikamsi as non-executive independent director for a second term of 5 years with effect from December 23, 2020 to December 22, 2025. This is a special resolution. The next item is Item number 4 of the notice pertains to the reappointment of Mr. Sunil Mathur as non-executive independent director for a second term of 5 years with effect from December 23rd, 2020 to December 22, 2025. This is a special resolution. Shareholders may note that after conclusion of the e-voting of the EGM, the scrutinizer will complete the counting and submit within 48 hours of the conclusion of the EGM a consolidated scrutinizer's report of the total votes cast in favor or against, if any, to the chairman or the person authorized by him in writing. We too shall countersign the same and declare the result of the voting for. The results declared alongside the scrutinizer's report shall be placed on the company's website www.thomascook.in and on the website of CDSL immediately after declaration of the results by the chairman or a person authorized by him in writing. The results will be communicated to the BSE, the Bombay Stock Exchange Limited, and the National Stock Exchange Limited in a prescribed manner. The result will also be displayed on the website of the company, notice board of the company at its registered office and corporate office. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your presence at this electronic EGM, and I request shareholders who have not yet cast their vote through e-voting to complete the voting in the next 15 minutes before the deactivation of the e-voting window.
So we will now wait for the members to vote, and the meeting will continue in the mute form.
We can log off, right?
No, the directors have to remain present until the meeting is concluded.
I'll continue. We'll continue. Thank you.
to CDSL, are you seeing any people voting?
So voting can only be seen by the scrutinizer. So right now, I think if you have given 15 minutes, we can wait for some time and then we can close it.
CDSL team, are we seeing any voting?
Yes, sir. Members are logging and trying to vote.
We will, since there is voting continuing to have people, members, shareholders logging on to vote, we will keep the e-voting open for a further 15 minutes. However, I will now declare this meeting as closed. And I will request all panelists to exit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madhavan.
Thank you, Mrs. Sudeshi. Thank you very much for standing in for me.